Uncle Jolly Roger, written by John Grant. Jim stood at the window of his grand's cottage. Outside was a lawn, beyond the lawn was a fence, and beyond the fence were a low cliff and the sea. In a few days it would be Christmas. When Dad said that he had to go to Paris for a day or two on business, Mum said, "I'll come too and do some Christmas shopping. Jim can stay with Gran." This sounded like an excellent plan to Jim. He wanted to ask about Uncle Roger, a member of the family no one spoke about. He had lived a long time ago and was so wicked that his family had been ashamed of him, and they still were. But whenever Jim tried to find out the terrible secret, Dad said, "You don't want to know about such things." But of course Jim wanted to know, and surely Gran would tell him. She knew lots of family stories, and some of them were even true. Jim's older cousin Dan had told him about Uncle Roger. "He was a very wicked young man," he'd said. "I think perhaps he was a highwayman, robbing stagecoaches. My dad said he was arrested for something, but escaped and ran away to sea and never came back." Jim asked Gran on the first day of his visit. She said, "He must have been amusing company. He was nicknamed Jolly Roger. In any case, he was not from my side of the family. We were always very respectable." Perhaps he was a pirate, Jim thought. He said so to Gran's green budgie, Joey. But, as he always did when Jim spoke to him, Joey cocked his head and said, "Joey's a good boy." Jim went to bed thinking about Jolly Roger. If he was a pirate, did he have a wooden leg or a hook or a parrot on his shoulder? A few hours later, pale sunshine shone through the window as Jim came slowly awake. That was odd. His window faced north, and this strange light wasn't bright enough to be sunshine. Suddenly, a voice cried out and caused him to sit up in bed. "Show a leg, Jim lad. The tide's on the turn and the wind stands fair for a voyage to the islands and the treasure of Elmo the Mighty." Jim jumped out of bed and switched on the light. There was a face at the window. For a moment, Jim was frozen to the spot. He couldn't move. Looking through the glass was a cheerful gentleman, dressed in old-fashioned clothes and holding aloft a flickering lantern. He had a black beard, a patch over one eye, and a parrot sitting on his shoulder. Jim pushed the window open. "Who are you?" he asked. The man laughed. "Me? I'm your great something or other uncle. You're to be my cabin boy. Get your sea boots and your parrot." "You are Uncle Jolly Roger," cried Jim as he dressed. He tucked his jeans into his wellies, turning the rubber tops like pirate boots he had seen in the books. Now for a parrot. He hurried into the sitting room. "Joey," he said, "you're going to sea." Half asleep, Joey muttered, "Joey's a good boy," as Jim carried him back to his bedroom and climbed out through the window. Uncle Jolly Roger was already striding across the lawn. They climbed over the fence and down a steep path to the beach, where a longboat was drawn up at the water's edge. In a moment they were aboard and skimming across the waves towards a large three-masted ship lying at anchor. As they boarded this second ship, Uncle Roger shouted, "Up anchor, make sail, course west-south-west." Jim looked back. There was a bright light on shore. His bedroom. He had forgotten to switch off the light. Day was breaking as the shore disappeared from view. A man with a wooden leg and a cook's hat came on deck shouting, "Breakfast, come and get it." In the captain's cabin, Jim sat down to a bowl of what the cook who served it called burgoo. "Sailor talk for porridge," explained Uncle Jolly Roger. There was also ship's biscuit, bursting with weevils, to which Jim said, "Oh, no, thank you." He had another helping of burgoo instead. When they had eaten, Uncle Roger spread a map on the cabin table. It showed an island with a cross marked on it in red ink. Beside the cross was written, "Here be the treasure of Captain Elmo the Mighty." "Captain Elmo? A small man with big ideas," mused Uncle Roger. "This is one of the only two copies of the map. Black Belt Dan is the other. He sailed with Captain Elmo and claims the treasure as his own. At that moment, the parrot flew to the cabin window and screeched, "Ship ahoy!" Joey joined in helpfully with, "Joey's a good boy." Captain Roger took one look. "Shiver me timbers," he cried. "'Tis himself, my arch rival, Black Belt Dan." A ship painted black all over and flaunting, billowing black sails was coming up fast astern. The captain hurried on deck, followed by Jim. There was a puff of smoke and a bang. A cannonball whizzed overhead. "Can't we go any faster?" panicked Jim. "No need," said the captain, smiling to himself. "We have a secret weapon." He pointed to a large brass cannon in the stern and shouted, "Load, aim, fire!" The smoke blew away. The black ship drew closer. "We missed," cried Jim. But as they watched, the black sails began to flap wildly. The ship was moving very slowly, swinging one way, then the other. "There's no one steering," said Jim. "There's no one doing anything," smirked the captain. "They're all too busy stuffing themselves with wine gums, jelly babies, sticky toffees and chocolate drops. Black Belt Dad is very particular about feeding his crew, you see. Wholemeal bread, skim milk, fresh vegetables. He doesn't allow sweets on board. A giant bag of mixed sweets bursting in the rigging is much better than 10 cannonballs. And when they've eaten all the sweets, most of the crew will be too sick to sail the ship." Then he shouted, "Mr. Mate, set all sails, every inch of canvas the masts will carry." By noon, the black ship was but a smudge on the horizon. Dawn was breaking the next morning as Captain Roger's ship rode at anchor. A long boat ferried him and Jim, plus 2 spade-bearing sailors, onto a sandy beach. Close by was a large boulder painted with a skull and crossbones. The captain gave Jim the map. "Read what's written, boy," he instructed. "From Dead Man's Rock," said Jim, "it is 18 places southwest." The captain looked at his pocket compass and took 18 steps to the southwest. 20 paces north-northwest, read Jim, and Captain Roger ploughed on until Jim called out, 12 paces east-south-east. "That's the place." The sailors took up their spades and started to dig, but only a few inches under the soil they hit solid rock. There was no way any treasure could be buried here. "This map's a fake," bellowed Captain Roger. "I don't think so," said Jim slowly. "You told me that Elmo was a small man, my size perhaps. He would have taken shorter strides like me." "Good thinking," cried the captain. "Let's try again. Back to Dead Man's Rock, everyone." At this time, with Jim pacing out the directions, they arrived at a patch of bare earth in the centre of a forest clearing. A few minutes digging and a big iron-bound chest was on its way back to the ship. On a dark, moonless night, Jim stepped ashore from the longboat. He carried his share of the treasure, 2 small bags of gold doubloons and a small silver coin he had found in the forest clearing. He said goodbye to his uncle and climbed the cliff path. As he clambered over the fence, he saw a light in one of the windows of Gran's cottage. His bedroom. It was surprising that Gran had not noticed the light. He climbed in, closed the window and returned Joey to his cage. He laid the doubloons on the bedside table before undressing, then switched off the light and slipped under the duvet. Gran woke Jim in the morning and exclaimed, "How did you get your boots so muddy? They're filthy. And another thing, you'll spoil them turning down the tops like that." She saw the gold doubloons. The chocolate coins for the Christmas tree. I've been looking for them everywhere. I wonder how they got here. Jim was on the verge of telling her all about Uncle Jolly Roger, but would she believe it? He wasn't sure if even he believed it. Perhaps it had been all a dream. He reached into his jeans pocket and took out the silver coin. That was real.